The year is after Colony 196. The Barton Foundation revealed their plans for world domination. Using their immense wealth, as well as Trace's fame, they created the Marimania army to take advantage of a peaceful world. They plan to carry out the original Operation Meteor and kill billions in the process, just so that they can rule over the Earth sphere. Chor and Barton and the other Gundam pilots sought to stop these plans by once again utilizing their mobile suits. The XXXG-01H2 Heavy Arms Custom is once again called upon to deliver heavy ordnance and suppressive fire on the front lines. In the game, Gundam Heavy Arms is a smaller mobile suit with 1200 HP and a slow dash recovery time. While being harder to hit due to its size, it is not as maneuverable as other DPS units such as the Pale Rider or the Gundam. A part of its slow nature comes down to the Heavy Arms' massive array of conventional weaponry. In fact, the only weaponry not represented in the game is the self-destruction device. Heavy Arms is armed with a pair of handheld Gatling guns with 2 sets of barrels. Unlike the original Heavy Arms, the optional shield is eliminated and the Gatling guns seem to fire physical rounds, but there are some claims that they can also fire beams? I don't know, it's kind of confusing in the wiki. In the Endless Waltz anime, these Gatling guns are also used by the enemy mobile suits, the Serpents. However, the difference is that the Heavy Arms is using a specialized, non-explosive round in order to try not to kill the pilots. I sure hope we're not using the same rounds in-game, because this is the only primary weapon that cannot headshot. Yes, that is right, the X-Judge Dagger can headshot, but not the Heavy Arms Gatling guns. The Heavy Arms guns is a close to mid-range weapon that has no magazine count, but instead uses an overheat system like the gun tank. This is really funny to me because the Heavy Arms in the anime is always running out of bullets. The in-game visual effect makes it look like 2 barrels are shooting 2 bullets, but it's actually impossible to separate the 2 bullets, and they always converge. Effectively speaking, this is 1 bullet. The stats of the Gatling guns are on screen now, and they will always be updated in the Gundam Evolution database. The alt fire of the Heavy Arms revs up a second pair of Gatling guns. This takes a full second, and any crowd control such as knockback, stuns, or just the Heavy Arms jumping will unrev the second Gatling gun. In this mode, you effectively double your DPS. And you only increase your heat generation by about 30%. This is Heavy Arms' supreme damage dealer. When he has quad barrels firing, he's properly set up and he can do a lot of damage. A great combo is to use the dash and rev the Gatling guns while dashing to get into an aggressive position or dash backwards to defend yourself. Keep in mind, if you're revving the Gatling guns, your movement speed will be halved, and your dash distance goes from long to short. This means you gotta know which fights to take with the 2 barrels, and which fights you take with quad barrels. The last thing I want to mention about the Gatling gun is that while you're able to put a lot of bullets downrange, it's not very accurate. Compared to other fully automatics, like the Unicorn Gatling gun, you're gonna have to get a lot closer because the spread is very heavy. This shouldn't be too much of a problem if you're using dashes and also the next ability correctly. Due to Trolla's natural dexterity, he has mastered the art of the somersault. He uses this to great effect in order to dispatch goons from the Barton Foundation. As far as how he does this in mobile suit form, I have no clue. Maybe some extra boosters in the back? But what I do know is that this is probably one of the coolest looking abilities in the game. When you activate the Lunar Somersault, you jump in a predetermined arc in any direction. The somersault will bring you 200 meters into the sky and about 130 meters in the direction of your choosing. The spinning hitbox is modified so that it's a bit harder to hit you in the air. This isn't like Barbados' jump, where he can only jump upwards. The Heavy Arms Somersault can go in any direction you want. Unlike the Barbados jump though, you won't get the extra distance from bouncing off of the ceiling. In fact, the somersault is programmed not to touch the ceiling, and thus will limit your full jumping potential indoors. You can use the somersault to fly over walls, fall onto good vantage points, or just simply jump over your enemies to create confusion all around. Just be careful, since the jump has a predetermined arc, it's pretty easy to jump off in Harbor City. I think the somersault makes it so that Heavy Arms is not a boring stationary gunner, but instead a really mobile unit that we don't get to see in other games. Height also combos with the next two abilities very well. The Heavy Arms is armed with two types of missiles, homing and micro missiles. The homing missiles are stored in the front skirts and the leg missile pods, and the micro missiles are stored in the shoulders of the mobile suit. This probably explains why the 6 shoulder rockets we shoot out do a whopping 10 damage on impact. The stats are on screen now. Now, these 6 incendiary missiles are slow-traveling projectiles that don't stop until they hit something to burn. Each of the missiles do their own AoE/burn damage. This ability really has a big gap in how much damage you can do, but I think a good rule of thumb is that you'll usually do about 200 to 350 damage to each mobile suit that it hits. Firing the rocket pod doesn't interrupt your Gatling guns either, but you can't fire them during the G maneuver. Obviously, this is a very good area of control ability, and believe it or not, this is your best and most valuable 1v1 ability. You're gonna have to see that Heavy Arms don't do a lot of damage in a short period of time. He can do a lot in a long period of time, but you need to really land the rocket in order to do enough burst damage in a 1v1 scenario to challenge mobile suits that have faster bursts, just the Gundam, the Marasai, the Pale Rider, Ashamar, Zaku 2 range, stuff like that. Another quirk of the missiles is that the spread when they are fired, so they won't be perfectly accurate at long ranges. It really seems to me that every ability that the Heavy Arms have points it to be a close to medium range unit, which is totally fine by me, but I think that is something that other people don't like because of how sort of immobile he is. And we can even see this design philosophy in the G maneuver. Fire everything you have on that bag. I think ironically the Heavy Arms only used this maneuver in Endless Waltz when we were looking at it through a TV screen. So here's the only other time we get to see the Heavy Arms fire all of its ammunition on animation. I'm not gonna lie to you, this G maneuver looks really cool, and it certainly does a lot of AoE damage. You'll start firing tracking Gatling gun shots and spray missiles where your cursor is pointing at. The stats are on screen now, and if you target the missiles correctly, you can kill any mobile suits in the game, except maybe a Sazabi holding a full shield. I recommend using this ability in choke points and clustered areas because unlike turn A butterfly, you won't be able to move after your G maneuver starts. You can, however, use the G maneuver in the air, and that's where the Lunar Somersault comes in. Height is really good for the hatch open because the chest missiles tend to fly downwards when being fired. This means a big amount of the missiles could miss if they aren't direct impacting. When you're in the air, the missiles have a better fly path and can lead to better damage output. Another thing about the hatch full open is that don't use it as a panic button. When I first started using the heavy arms, I kept thinking that this would do good burst damage and get me out of a bad situation, but getting a single kill with it is not good usage. And ironically, you will be outbursted by a lot of other units in the same second. I found that it is much better to save it for a team push to get damage in. In fact, I think it's actually far better to begin the team fight with this thing so that everyone else is around the kill percentage, allowing something like an Exia or a gun tank or your other allies to finish up. Another note is that it's really easy to counter this G maneuver. I've had so many opportunities where there is a perfect patch open opportunity and it is wasted when somebody with a ranged shield comes along. So definitely pick your battle sources and track cooldowns, especially with Hyperion just able to pop his shield and deny all of your damage. Heavy Arms is three things. He's team reliant, he's defense oriented, and he loves elevation. I found that Heavy Arms can't really tackle problems by himself. He's a poor duelist and has no supportive abilities for his team. Sure, he can get to a position, but can he survive while being so immobile? No, I don't really think so. I think he does really well when there's a Messis or a Unicorn nearby. Other DPSs like Pale and Gundam don't really have that kind of problem because they are so much more mobile. Heavy Arms needs to consistently heal as well because you are going to take shots while firing. You have to trade health points a lot as Heavy Arms, so having a tank frontline for you or a healer is really important. I personally love the gun tank, Heavy Arms, and Unicorn combo, which is just a hilarious amount of rounds going down range at all times. I also found that Heavy Arms is very defense oriented. He loves being set up, he loves people pushing into him, and there's not really too much to say about that if you know how turrets work. Heavy Arms has a bit of a hard time getting in there, but if they come to him, he has no problem. If we get a cart pushing mode in the future, I bet Heavy Arms will be really good at that, but right now, I think you should probably play him in defensive positions around the map rather than forcefully going after every kill. Finally, Heavy Arms loves elevation. High ground is his fucking jam. Shoulder rocket pods have an easier time hitting AoE from up high, and your hitbox is less exposed, and your G maneuver missiles can hit better. All kinds of good things come from controlling the high ground, and with Lunar Somersault, getting up to the high ground is a fucking breeze. The only thing you really have to worry about is staying on the high ground, and this is where playing with your team and coordinating will help immensely. Overall, I really love playing Heavy Arms. I know that he's not the strongest mobile suit around, but man, he is a joy to play. And he is probably one of the most mobile Gatling gun characters I've ever played in any game. Most of the time, when a Gatling gun character is introduced, the game forces them to be an ultra high HP tank and slow as hell character that somehow gets one-shotted by snipers or assassins. I'm looking at you, TF2 Heavy. So I am very glad that there's some good mobility to Heavy Arms. And mobility is what Gundam Evolution does really well in the first place, so 10 out of 10 for enjoyability. I also wanted to thank my flag fighters over on Patreon. Thank you for keeping Gundam Evolution database online, for welcoming Mondo as a new Bushido, and thank you Nettle, Tentomon, Yarlia, Hans, Percy, Roxford, and Josh for helping me keep the website alive. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll play you out on the sax.